Schultz, Vice President of Marketing and Analytics at Facebook, once says the biggest problem he sees facing companies is that they think they have reached product market fit when actually they did not. And Mark Anderson, who is often credited with developing the concept of product market fit, divides early products and life cycles into two key stages: before product market fit and after finding product market fit. I think we reached the point where we all know what we are going to talk about today. We're talking about product market fit driven product managers. Hello, leaguers, and welcome to today's Ask Me Anything session, the place where talented and curious product managers like you get the opportunity to ask us anything. Now, although finding product market fit is a shared responsibility across the company with sales, business development, support, and all other departments take part, it's the product management department who is responsible for building the strategy behind it and guiding the company on how to find its PMF, and preferably as fast as possible. Now, why that fast? Because before you confirm that enough people are willing to pay for what you created, your team can't afford to focus on, well, actually anything else. Your first and most important task as a product professional is to determine that your product has enough of a market to sustain itself and to generate profit. This is what we're going to talk about today. What is product market fit driven product management? How can you master the challenge? And what you need to know tomorrow to make sure that your product is set to win. By the way, nice to meet you. I am Moriya Kassis, founder and general manager of Product League, and what we do is helping you to become the best product manager you can be. Product League is a mentoring program for product managers by product managers, and you're invited to come by our weekly live Ask Me Anything sessions every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now we've got 3 talented, dedicated, and experienced Product League mentors to answer all your questions. Let's bring them in. Joining us live from Tel Aviv, let's welcome Klein, Product Manager at Korni Digital and Product League mentor. Roy is a creative and performance-driven product leader that specializes in identifying growth opportunities and turning them into products that customers love. Roy also specializes in the domain of analytics, e-commerce, automation, personalization, big data, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. And he's here with us today to answer all your questions. How are you, Roy?
Great. Thank you, Moriya. It's great to be here. So
happy to have you here with us. And we are moving to Bangalore because joining us live, a big hello to Amit Pandita, Product Manager at Flipkart and Product League mentor. Amit is a web developer turned into a product professional who is passionate about how technology can help us solve problems and make better decisions. Specializing in the logistics and supply chain domain, Amit is all about delivering client-facing products while taking into account business and engineering priorities and winning the market. I think the winning the market is the most important part in your bio that is, super critical and relevant for today.
Absolutely, yeah.
So happy to have you here with us. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Super excited to be a part of this.
Very excited to have you here as well. Thank you very much. And we are back to Tel Aviv with Gad Zehavi, VP Product and co-founder at Concili.io and Product League mentor. Please get ready to learn him because he has a lot to share with you. With 14 years of experience working closely with all departments, leaders, R&D, sales, marketing, and CEOs, Gad is experienced in defining strategy, planning roadmaps and pipelines, as well as execution and production. He is fluent in all aspects of product management, from product market fit to lifecycle management and user behavior analysis. All are super important for today's talk. How are you today?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here with us. Thank you all. So Amit and Roy are back with us. Now, guys, I want you to understand, all the audience, how is it going to work today. So there are already amazingly exciting questions that were submitted before the event when you actually RSVP'd to this event. And of that, we received almost 200 questions. This is just so you guys understand how many questions we received about the topic. And we choose the questions that were most frequent, so we know that you are bothered with the most. But we also chose the questions that were more exciting and interesting and what we believe can help you to become the best product manager you can be. And we don't stop there. At the end of the session, we will also have an open Q&A where these three magnificent product league mentors will answer the questions you'll submitted in the chat. With that in mind, leaguers in the audience, you got 2 call to actions to follow. 1, show us some product love and please like this video and our channel. Subscribe if you watch us on YouTube and, get us all this user feedback one-on-one with some product love. And please make sure to submit your questions in the chat. Let us know what is it on your heart and mind when it comes to find product market fit for your product, because we want to give you the answers that you are looking for. So with that in mind, Amit, Gad, and Roy, what do you say? Are we ready to start?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Alex, hang it on. Yes.
Loving
excited.
it. Loving it. So we are going live and we're starting with, common ground, just to understand what is it that we're talking about. With a question, it goes to you, Amit. It comes from Gilad. And he's asking, how do you define product market fit?
Yeah, it's a good start to the session. In my opinion, the way I would define a product market fit is when you are basically able to identify in market where you launch a product and which is able to continuously satisfy the customer needs. And when I say continuously, I would want to emphasize on that because the customer needs and the product is a continuously evolving process, right? The customer needs keep changing and also so does the product, right? Now there are 2 important pieces here. There's a product and this market, right? When you talk about the market, market comprises of, there are very specific sort of customers that you would ideally want to target, right? You would specifically want to target a cohort of a customer, and you would also want to target their underlying needs. You would want to understand what are those specific customers and what are their pain points, right? I also talked about the product. When you talk about the product, essentially what a product comprises of is, hey, what's your value proposition? What is it that you're bringing onto the table, right? What is your differentiation? What's the set of features that you are also bringing on the table as a part of your product, and how easy or how efficient is it for the user to kind of use it? Now, when you marry the product to your market, is how you basically identify a prototype, and the best way for you is to just go to the market and start launching that prototype and test with the end users, right? And then you have your hypothesis and you sort of go and validate them right on with the end users, and then you kind of keep iterating, and if there are failures in your hypothesis, you sort of fail fast and you iterate, and that's how you kind of keep iterating and building fast. So to me, I mean, and that's how I kind of perceive, that's how I see the whole iteration, and then until you actually find the product market fit.
Love it. Thank you very much. And as this is a super critical question, Gad and Roy, do you have anything to add on the wise words by Amit?
Just one sentence here. The way I define it is that when you have a product market fit, it means that you answer an existing pain, that you bring value to the users. You have a product that you can sell, and that has a viable business plan, which is something more internal than external. But I think the point of having a viable business plan is critical, because many startups and many products neglect that point and think that, okay, I'll just reach product market fit and we'll figure the money out later. And you don't always figure out the money later. And you need to make sure that you have a viable business plan. And I usually put that together with the product market fit, even if I have an external market fit, but not an internal business plan, I did nothing.
I love it. Thank you very much. Roy, anything to add?
Yes, so I think that the interesting part about the product market fit, and as Amit and Gad said, in the end, it's coming from the investment world of startups and how a new product actually arrived to the market. And it is interesting to examine this, and I hope that we will be able to do it today from a different product management perspective. Like if you are in the end working on a corporate or a product that is larger, so it a little bit changed the definition. And I think that it will be interesting when we continue to discuss about this aspect as well.
I'm sure it is, and I'm already excited because we already got to some of the juicy stuff. So thank you very much for that, you all. And Gad, we are back to you with a question from Kiki. And she is asking, what are the signs that you have reached the product market fit? Is there any quantitative way to show it to stakeholders?
Of course. You always
I like
have
it. Of course, there is a way.
You always have, it's very important that you have a quantitative way to show what you do, because otherwise, it's just an opinion, and everyone has an opinion. To answer the question, the simplest and most common way to measure product market fit is to measure the user engagement KPIs against a relevant benchmark. It can be the industry standard or the industry best practice, or if you have that data, a key competitor that you singled out and you want to be better than that. It's a bit harder to get information of specific competitors. Usually you use an industry benchmark. Engagement KPIs can be conversion rate, how many users that first engage with your product actually become users, or retention rate. What percent of the users that started using your products come back again and again and become regular users? After you run for some time, for a period of time, you can start measuring what we call customer lifetime value, meaning what's the value that you get from that user monetize-wise over the lifespan of the user, and you need to make sure that that's higher than your acquisition cost. That's what I mentioned earlier about a viable business plan, business model. If you don't have a product that users need to sign up and have some sort of conversion, if you don't buy anything, if you have, for example, a content platform, a blog, or any free content service, that you don't have to measure conversion. You can measure time on product, page views, repeat visit, etc., etc. All these, by the way, refer to B2C products. When it comes to B2B, in some ways it's much easier because you talk to your customers or to your prospects and understand better when you have a value proposition that fits the market.
I love it because you already answered one of the questions that was submitted in the chat. Now, when Mayur is asking, is willingness to pay, to sign or buy, so not willingness to pay, but something else, is the best indicator. So thank you very much. You already have the audience in mind, and Gilad is here to say thank you for answering his question. So thank you very much for that. Yes, amazing stuff in the making already. And we are moving to you, Roy, with a question from Victoria. And she's asking, what are the biggest misconceptions about product market fit? I love this one.
Yeah, it is a great question. And I think that it is something that actually it was surprising for me, but I think that Amit touched it a little bit in his answer earlier. I think that the biggest misconception about product market fit is that everyone thinks that it is a discrete binary event. And I think that in real life, in the end, it is a continuous process. So just, to give you a small example, if you're achieving product market fit, and I think that it depends when you join the company and what is the state of the product that you're starting to manage, but there are things that can change this equation. So if, for example, the product already has its existing audience or customers that are using it, if you're doing something good, you can gain more demand from customers. If you're doing something bad, for example, you impact on the demand. And on the other end, the market is also changing. So, for example, something can change and diminish your demand or increase it. And I think that one of the really interesting thing to research in order to really understand this concept, I think it is the music industry between the 80s, 90s until today. It is really interesting to examine all the products and services. You can think about MTV, YouTube. You know, there are a lot of examples when they gain their market fit and then when it decreased or increased. And same goes, by the way, nowadays, when we are talking about and think about the COVID-19, how it impact, for example, to the e-commerce industry. How
or tourism.
Or tourism, exactly. How it push customer to use more e-commerce. I'm close to the e-commerce market, so I'm really familiar with this phenomena, and it will be interesting to see how it will evolve after the COVID-19. What will be the impact, what will stay, what will change. So I think that this is, in the end, the biggest misconception about product market fit.
So true. Thank you very much for that. And we are back to you, Gad, with a question from Isabella. And she is asking how to test the market fit for a completely new product, first of its kind in the market, before spending too much effort on development. I'm sure all startup guys in the audience are eager to learn what you're going to say.
Okay, so I'll start by emphasizing a point that we're talking about product market fit and not the very concept of the product. I'm assuming that you already did your homework and you already did your market research, and you know that there is value in your product and there is a market for it. Now we're just talking about the product market fit. If you do want to reach, at least to some degree, a product market fit before going all out in development. And for this specific purpose, there's what we call an MVP, the minimal viable product, a very lean, basic version of the product, including only the minimal functionality to demonstrate the product's value. With this MVP, you can either go out to meet your customers by using usability testing or focus groups or beta partners if it's a B2B, or as many do in actuality, is actually going live with some sort of an MVP and start building, getting feedback and building on that for later improvements. If you don't have any benchmark, if it's a completely new product in a completely new market and you don't have any benchmark to measure against, then in this case, you need to have your own benchmark, and that goes back again to the business model that I discussed earlier. What's the conversion rate that you need in order to cover your expenses, to have a viable business? This would be your benchmark. And when you have that, then you can assume that you have, at least to some degree, a product market fit, and then you just optimize on that.
So true. Thank you very much. Amit and Roy, do you have anything to add, just because it's an interesting topic? So I wonder if you have any extra wisdom to share with us.
I think Gad has kind of already covered what my thoughts were here.
That's a win. That's a win on your end, Gad.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Perfect. Okay, so now we are staying with the how to build questions. And Roy, it goes to you. It comes from Robert, and he's asking, how can a startup most effectively create an MVP that is market fit driven?
Thanks. Again, it's a great question. So I think that, the basic principle of creating an MVP that is market fit driven is basically to make an hypothesis, test it, prove it, and then move on. This is the basic equation, and I think that what I would like to do is try to take you through a basic analogy to give you some clues about the rules or things that you can think about when you're doing this process. And I will take you with the analogy of cooking. So let's say that you have a startup that is focused on cooking, and you would like to build an MVP for a new guest. You would like to cook something for a new guest, and you have a set of ingredients. So what you can do, how you can build the MVP. So one of the things that you can do, for example, is like showing the plan, what you're planning to do, and some of the ingredients, part of the relevant ingredients, okay? And then your guest will tell you, okay, I like it or not. Another option is doing some research, understanding what is the flavor of this guest, and then creating MVP according to what you hear from here. And another option is, for example, testing, building some small dishes and giving them to test, and then doing like testing until you are getting to this flavor. But there are things that you shouldn't do. And one of the options, for example, is giving to the guest tasting a raw material. So you don't want to give them testing all the material and all the ingredients because it will not work probably. And another thing is that you don't want to waste all your ingredients to bet on one dish because you don't know the guest and you probably will miss it. So I think that in the end, my summary and for this question is, first of all, you need to be really creative when you choose your MVP. There are a lot of ways to do it. And the second thing is there is a thin line between going out too fast without any ability to validate what you wanted to validate. And you don't want to go out too late and then miss all your resources and time.
I think the restaurant analogy is going to be taken from you tomorrow by everyone who is now listening to us, because it's just spot on. I love it. Thank you very much, Roy. And Mayur has an interesting comment and is saying that's known. Rahul, the founder of Superhuman, saying that you reach a product market fit when you are taking your product off the market and at least 40% of your users are upset. So I know his article. I guess you guys know the article as well. And it goes back to what you said before, Gad, about making sure that you have something that is viable and people actually want it. So this is a very nice way to test it in a different way if you're first in the market, as the question that was submitted to you earlier.
There's a nice quote about that. What Roy mentioned earlier is that if you're happy with the product when you launch it, you launch too late.
Of course, that's a good one as well. I love all the quotes that are coming by. Thank you very much to all of you. And Amit, Jenia has a question to you, and she's asking, is it a good idea to try and test multiple parallel markets, or maybe it's best to focus on one and quickly adapt?
I think it's a question asked at the right time when Roy has been trying to emphasize on the MVP. To me, I don't think it's a good idea to sort of go in parallel markets at the same time. Couple of reasons for that. When you're trying to sort of get out and try to find the product market fit, you'd really want to just focus on one market, one niche market, because you're trying to just first try and understand what the customers really want, right? Trying and going and launching into multiple markets, to me, there are a bunch of reasons why you would not really. It's a bad idea for you to do that. One, you would have a really lean team, right? It's a bad idea to sort of spread them thin and distract them over multiple markets, And this is also at a stage where you don't even know what is your product even fit for the market that you're trying to sort of target, right? Forget about going into multiple markets. It might make some sense if the markets are really small, kind of mini markets. One example could be if Netflix is trying to sort of come to India and trying to sort of make a very, very state-specific content and trying to sort of upload it. That still kind of makes sense. But if you are launching and going to a market, to me at least, you would really want to just stick to one market, try and sort of find the market fit. And I would also, again, reminds me of a point that Gad has also been emphasizing, that you should also look at the viability of the product, right? That it should also make sense for you to sort of go to a market, see if your P&L is fitting well, right? It should also, your P&L should make sense for a certain market. once you've found once you've sort of managed to hit that right PNL and you're good with one market, is when ideally you should have a playbook to also roll out your whatever product to the right set of markets. And if they are similar markets, then obviously then also you should have a strategy to go ahead. And if you want to just go ahead and try out in different markets also, you should still sort of do experiment and be very careful about it, right? Because when you are at a state wherein you have a very small team, and obviously startups do not really have a bunch of product managers and bunch of marketing folks and everyone, you really don't want to just burn money experimenting into multiple markets. To me, again, in summary, it's not practically possible. It's not a good idea to sort of go and experiment in the multiple markets. That's what my point is.
I highly agree with you, and I think it goes both for corporates. I've launched a few new products in corporate as well, and also there, you may have all the resources you need, but the human resource of attention, this is not something that you can spread over a few. Well, you do it over a few hypotheses already, right? So this is already a struggle to face it, but to do it in multiple markets as well, this is a little challenging one. I highly agree with you on this one. And Abid has a question to you, Gad, and he's asking, for B2B, we're now moving a little bit to the B2B from the B2C, and he's asking, for B2B, what have you found works best to test product concept with customer to validate demand and willingness to pay?
Well, in B2B, at least in theory, everything is much simpler, because if you already have a set of customers that you work with, and assuming you've done your job right, then you have open channels with, and you have good communications with, and the simplest thing to do is just talk to them. Now, go there, meet with them, show them the product, give them a chance to play around with it and test it. And if your existing customer base is not expressing excitement or willingness to pay, then you have a problem, and you probably need to go back to the drawing board. Now, if it's a new product and you don't have a customer base, then a very common practice is to find a beta partner or a launch partner. Find a customer, a potential customer, which you believe represent your target audience, and offer them the product for free, for the chance to be your beta partner or launch partner. They will provide you with the resources to test the products, integrate it into their systems and workflows, and provide feedback on the product, and in return they get the product for free, either for a set amount of time or whatever, and B, they have the opportunity to help shape the product that best suits their specific needs, because they will naturally give feedback based on their specific needs. With this option, you need to be very careful that you don't end up building a product for that specific launch partner or beta partner, that you need to sometimes you're in an awkward position when your partner asks you for something and you have to say no because it doesn't meet a greater audience. But usually that's the best way to go with B2B products. Either use your existing customers or find a customer to work with, to launch with.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you very much for that, Gad. And we are moving to what may be the most interesting part of our session, to talk about how to measure product market fit. This question goes to you, Roy. It comes from Liran, and he's asking for your tips for choosing a top-line metric.
Yeah. So first of all, I thought that the message that we got earlier, so that is related to the survey. So there is a method that saying that what you need to do is ask your customers whether they will be disappointed if your product or services no longer exist. And actually, I saw once a product that really used it and successfully got the required results above 40%, something like that. But I think that in real life it is a little bit different, and I will give you my tip and how I usually go into this kind of situation. What I'm trying to do is map all the customer journey from the beginning of the customer journey until the end of the customer journey, and try to think about, in the end, the product as a set of features that each and every one of them need a certain product market fit. So if you will look on your product and the time that customer engage with it in the first time, convert from marketing or from sales into actually using the product, logging in, engaging with the product, retention, and then churn, you will be able, and measuring, by the way, each and every one of these steps, you will be able to understand in terms of product market fit where you stand, where are your challenges, and then you will be able also to find the ways in order to improve the challenges that within your product, with usually with more features that solve the situation.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. It is a very critical question. And we're staying with this topic, with the question that goes to you, Amit. It comes from Shelly, and she's asking, what are the most important factors you look at or consider when evaluating product market fit?
And that's a pretty interesting question. In my head, there are a couple of key important points that you usually sort of keep in your head while evaluating it. The first one is more around how often. I think we've spoken about this point earlier, but I think Gad mentioned about it, that how often do the customers come to your platform and use it, right? We also have this terminology in e-commerce called TPC, transactions per customer. So the way we measure it, that, hey, how often is a customer coming to your platform on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, right? So one way to determine that, your product market fit is to identify that, hey, for a product, what are your customers coming, frequently enough to go and consume your product? A couple of examples there, right? If you talk about Netflix, for identifying a company similar to Netflix, whether they've achieved the right market fit is to sort of go and check how are customers coming frequently to sort of view content or not, right? If you talk about a company like Uber, the way to sort of determine is to sort of, just look at, how frequently are, commuters taking rides from your company or not, right? That's one factor that I would say is how often are customers coming on your platform. Second critical piece in my head is about the timing. The timing for any company is very crucial, in the sense that if you end up in a bad timing in a certain market, you might not end well, right? If you again, I think Roy was mentioning about the music industry and the evolution of the music industry, right? If you look at the way TikTok has just evolved in the last couple of years, right? And if you look at the scene maybe 5 years before, no one would have imagined that people would just be sharing pretty much everything and going live and doing all of that, right? So it's also about the timing in my head, which is very critical when you evaluate the market fit. Apart from the the timing, you also need to also make sure. I'm just thinking what all are the critical points.
No, that's perfect. So we already had habit forming, which is super critical. Now it goes differently from one domain to another and from one product to another, what we call the habit, but that is one. Second one that you mentioned is timing. Very interesting.
Yeah. Third, I think I mentioned about staying lean. I think it's also very important that I think I mentioned that earlier about staying lean when you are trying to find a product market fit, right? In the sense that it's very critical that you don't go on and expand into huge teams because you just can't afford to sort of have multiple product managers, right? It is a very important and very critical time. And then I think to my experience, I've seen product managers. It's very essential to fit into a certain market, right? In the sense that there are product managers, like you're mentioning, who come from big corporates, right, and who do not even fit in, who haven't even seen the pre-PMF stage, right? So identifying a pre-PMF stage is itself an art, right? So right side of intuition is very important for the product managers to sort of be there and understand and identify the market. So I think in my head, that's also one important part. So yeah.
Very, very interesting. Thank you very much. Gad and Roy, do you have anything to add about factors that you consider when evaluating product market fit?
No, I think it's pretty covered it pretty much.
Yeah, I think that interesting concept to think about is stickiness, and I think it is related exactly to what Amit said. So there is stickiness of users, how much time users are checking your Netflix. I'm sticking with Netflix. I'm watching it all the time, and there is, by the way, stickiness if you're working on a B2B platform. Maybe stickiness is how many stakeholders using your product. If the analyst, manager, and what are the gap or what are the expansion of stakeholders they're using your product can give you a sense of the stickiness and how hard it would be for them to replace it. So it is another factor that you can think of.
That's a fabulous factor, and I actually want to add on that and go back to what Gad mentioned earlier about a viable product model when it comes to the financial aspects of the company. So its stickiness also goes to the fact that either parts of the product or the products are used by stakeholders that eventually are going to make the decision to pay for your product. So if we're going to talk about B2B as we are now, the user is not necessarily the buyer. And then when we're talking about stickiness and about forming of habits, as you, Amit, mentioned before, it all goes back to what Gad, you mentioned earlier, about valuable financial models for the company. So I just love to see how everything comes together in such a fantastic and interesting way. Thank you very much for that. And we're
if you want to make money, build a product for CFOs. For themselves, they will always sign the check.
There is one additional point. I just comes to my mind. When you are also building a product market fit, one important factor is also how well do you implicitly or explicitly understand what customers want, in the sense that you would not always want to just go out and ask customers what they want, right? There are products and feature sets wherein there are companies who have built features which customers do not really ask for, right? And you sort of come up with those features, and the customers realize, hey, this is a good to have feature, right? Let's say if I talk about again the transportation business, Uber launching a shared sort of a transportation was again something that customers didn't really think about, right? I mean, obviously they always perceived, at least in India, the customers always perceived a cab to be always a private kind of a service, right? And when you sort of enter into a service which allows you to also share a cab, right? It's again some sort of a feature which was offered by a company, and sort of customers kind of loved it, right? So that's again one more critical feature which sort of helps you to sort of go and get the market fit. Yeah.
Super important. Thank you very much, Amit. And I want to remind the audience that we are waiting for the questions that they want to submit to you guys for the open Q&A that we will have at the end of the session. So please make sure to like this video, to subscribe to our channel, to like our page, and to let us know what is it on your heart and mind when it comes to the adventure of finding your product market fit. Gad, we are going back to you with a question from Ido, and is asking for an objective way to measure product market fit that can be generalized to most products and markets.
I think that unless your product is a one-time use product, the one metric that I would choose as a cross-market metric would be retention. What percent of your customers come back to use your product over and over again? After you have that, you can start drilling down to a more specific metrics like frequency of use, duration of use, and stuff like that. But the very basic question is, are your users after using the product once, come back and use it again. If they don't, you don't have a product market fit. Even if you have a very high conversion, if you manage to get them, to get visitors to become users, if they don't come back again, you probably don't have a product market fit. And to this, I want to add an important note that sometimes people tend to ignore, is that different people get different value from the product that you have. And sometimes you launch a product with one value proposition in mind, and after you're in the market for a while, you realize that the value that people get from your product is completely different. And I remember when working in my supermarket, I used to work there for many years. We launched the product. It was a price comparison for grocery trolleys, and the value proposition we launched in mind was that people will compare prices and shop using the platform. And after a while, we realized that people do shop once or twice, but they don't come back again to shop. What they do come back over and over and over again is to compare prices of specific products. And then you have to pivot your entire product or your entire company and your entire business model to fit the product market fit that you have, which may be different than what you envisioned when first thinking of your product.
So true, and this is exactly why the product department is the one that mainly responsible for finding product market fit, because you always have to be so attentive to your users, and always to follow and to make sure that you understand the way they use the product and not be fooled by hypotheses. So this is spot on, Gad. Thank you very much for that. And Amit, Shai is asking, the pre-product market fit state is pretty frustrating, to say the least. How should we keep the team motivated to find product market fit?
That's a good question. We've spoken briefly about the pre-PMF state, and it's a difficult one, and I think it's kind of gets frustrating for a lot of companies and a lot of people, right? What, at least in my opinion, gets going folks, whatever the PMs or the company should normally do is to sort of go out in the market and keep iterating on the hypothesis that you have, right? I think one way to sort of keep yourself engaged is to keep always building hypotheses and going out in the market and validating them. One motivational thing to do always is to sort of go ahead and see that, hey, if you build 10 hypotheses, and if, let's say, out of 10 there are 2 or 3 which are making sense, to me at least, I've seen that at least I as a PM have been disappointed, and I've also been sort of still stuck on, and I have held on to building out, and trying to sort of search for the market fit when I see that, hey, there still is sort of some sort of value in whatever we're trying to build, right? So at least engaging and continuously building. I think I also want to emphasize on one point that product discovery alone is not like an independent stage. I mean, you discover and you build at the same time. So while you're discovering, and then while you use data and intuition to sort of discover and build, it's again a kind of a circle or a loop you sort of keep closing and sort of keep engaging yourself, right? So if teams keep engaging themselves, if teams keep experimenting or sort of validating the hypothesis, I think that's one best way to keep engaged and not get disappointed in sort of difficult scenarios. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you very much. And Roy, we are back to you with a question from Hassan, and is asking if you can talk a bit about product manager market fit. Now, we all know the founder market fit, this term, but we now want to talk about product professionals and how they fit the product that they are working on.
Okay, so let me just return to see that everyone knows the term founder market fit or founder fit. I think that this is a term that in the end try to estimate what is the matching between a founder and the startup that they establish. It talk about obsession, experience, story, and personality. In the product management field, I think that there are 3 factors that are really, really important to make sure that the product manager is matching to the product that is managing, he or she. The first one is obsession about the market. So I think that it is really important for the product manager to be able to love the market. Actually, we need to do a lot of research, understanding the market, what are the trends, where is it coming, where it's going for. So it requires to invest a lot of time, and product manager needs to love their market. The second thing is technology. In the end, we need to sit with, for example, discussions with engineering team. We need to hear about technology, and we need to have at least ability to listen and to love it. And this is part of the job. And the last thing, I think that it is a customer need or empathy for customer. It is really important for product manager to know the customer. I think that we discussed about it a lot in this session. Product manager need to be able to go into the customer's shoes, try to face the same problems the customer is facing, and only by doing so really understand what the product is capable now and what it will be capable to do in the future. So I think, again, the 3 concepts is market, technology, and customer needs.
Thank you very much, Roy. I love it. And as this question has to do not only with product market fit, but also with career development and other subjects that are very close to our hearts, Gad and Amit, I wonder if you have anything to add on what Roy just shared with us.
Yeah, I think, I don't have to add, I want to emphasize on the last point that Roy mentioned is that you need to feel the pain. It's very important that the product manager that works on the product understands the pain that the product is aiming to solve or to relieve. If you don't really understand the pain and feel it, it's very difficult to be passionate and obsessive about solving that pain. And I think that's a very critical aspect to it. The others you can learn.
Yeah, and you need to love your job, right? We're here to create product that we are happy to create. So this is a big part of that. Amit, anything to add?
Yeah, just building on top of what Gad was mentioning, it's even more essential and becomes even more critical for product managers who are especially working in the e-commerce space, and especially like product managers like me who are on the supply chain side, right? It is very important for us to know the ground reality before building products, because you really need to know what people on the ground are working on and what their pain points are, right? You just cannot sit in your rooms and just assume, hypothesize, and just build out something and give it to them, because I've seen a lot of times, whatever you end up building turns out to be not exactly completely opposite, but very differentiated from what the user needs were, right? So you really need to just go out there, validate, talk to a lot of customers. I mean, talking to people is very critical. Talking to your customers is very essential, right? And then the more you go out and talk, the better, your product will turn out to be. So yeah, just that to add, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we are moving to the exciting part of the live Q&A of questions submitted in the chat by the audience. And we are starting with Chandan, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, who is asking, how should we measure the performance of a product, and how can we decide on the correct time to launch a new product? Now, we already talked about performance and measurement. We put it aside, but you, Amit, mentioned earlier the timing of when to test something and when to say, okay, that's ready for the market. So we're going back to that exact question. When to send it out to the market after we are testing it. Let's start with you, Amit, and I'm sure that Roy and Gad have a lot to add on it.
Sure. This actually goes back to when I was talking about I was defining the product market fit, and I talked about the market, right? When I broke the market, I also said that essentially what market means is that who are your customers, what are their pain points, and first of all, who are your what customer cohort are you targeting, right? Let's say if you're targeting millennials, what are the pain points of those millennials, right? So the way you ideally want to start is to sort of first go and circle down to what is the geography, or what is the market that you're targeting, what are the exact customer cohorts that you're looking at, what are their pain points, right? Let's say if you talk about a certain millennials who are really commuting every day in, day out, right? And if there's a problem, again, just thinking about a problem statement, if let's say there's a transportation problem, or there isn't a sort of Uber-like model, which is again in a certain market, right? And you would essentially, the way you would sort of define a problem space is that, hey, there is a problem to be solved for people who essentially travel from their home to work in a distance of, let's say, 5 to 15, 20 kilometers. You go about and first try and understand, hey, what is the current, how are they trying to solve the problem right currently, what are the different what's the competition available in the market, right? Is it public transport? Are there other ride hailing companies who are there, before even going into the market and look at the timing, you really need to first know that what's the competition available in the market, and what are they trying to solve, and what is it. So in fact, more importantly, you should also focus on what is an unsolved problem, because that is what becomes your differentiation, right? What is something that they have not been able to solve, and what is something that you would bring on the table, right? Otherwise it becomes very difficult for someone to again, you're also talking about stickiness, right? So a person is sort of stuck to a certain platform. It becomes very difficult for someone to sort of introduce a new product and be able to sort of make a customer accustomed to it, right? So timing is very critical, and it also depends on who is already in the market and what is the differentiation that you bring to the table. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Gad and Roy, anything to add on timing?
I don't have an answer to timing. If I had an answer, then I wouldn't be here. There's a very fine line between launching too soon and too late. I've made an earlier quote about if you're happy with the product when you launch it, you've launched too late. So you need to early as soon as possible, but with a product that provides an answer. Because if you launch too early and your product doesn't provide an answer, then you're actually starting getting negative feedback on your product and negative media if it's public. Then you find yourself that you need to actually start convincing convincing users that the product is not as bad as it was when we launched. We fixed it, and this is not a position you want to be in. So it's a critical decision on when to launch. So you have an MVP. You need to make sure that you answer the most important value proposition, the most important pain. Other than that, just launch and start optimizing after that.
So true. And I want to add something on what you just shared, because it was spot on. And we need to think not just about the immediate value that we have to supply, but also on about the value that comes afterward. And what I mean in that is thinking about customer support. So sometimes startups and even more mature companies, they launch a new product or they put it in the market, and they know that the immediate value is indeed generated to the users, but they don't think about the life cycle of a user within that, and that's what prevents users from keeping using the product, even though they did find the value that they looked for in the beginning. So this is a really good point. Thank you very much, Gad. Roy?
Yeah, I think that, it's the timing in the end, it's set by, first of all, by the development. So there is also the physics of the development itself. Even if you would like to launch something tomorrow, you sometimes cannot do it. And then there is a different market. So for example, there is a seasonal market. So you need to prepare when you would like to launch it, in the peak season or the low season. This is another thing to think about. And something that is related to what you mentioned, Moriya, and also Gad, related to who you want to launch the product. So for example, when again working on the B2B environment and working with big customers, you don't want to launch something for a demanding customer that is a little bit broken. You need to make sure that everything is worked correctly. Otherwise, you will need to invest all the other time after the launch in fixing problems for this customer, not doing things that are more important.
Yeah, we all talk from the experience of broken hearts. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roy. And we are moving to a very interesting question. It comes from Hada, and she is asking, how do you measure product market fit for cybersecurity products? They are not used as other product usually does. And why it's so interesting is because cybersecurity product as well as insurance product actually don't deliver immediate value. The value they create for us until something bad is happening is this the feeling of certain confidence that everything is okay. So it's actually about the lack of a bad experience. This is the value, and not something that is generated as we can use something, we can get the benefits straight from the start. And what usually is done when we're talking about products like this is that we product managers need to focus on ways that we communicate this assurance, this feeling of everything is fine with the users in a way that will actually generate value to them. So it's different if we're talking about B2C or we are talking about B2B, but putting a way to measure and to make a more calculated feeling around the essence of being insured or protected with cybersecurity products is what we are looking for, but there is more to say about that. So Roy, Gad, and Amit, what do you have to share about product market fit in cybersecurity products and as well insurance, everything that has to do with the evidence of immediate value?
I'll give it a try. I don't have an experience in those fields, so I can't give you an answer firsthand, but in terms of cybersecurity, I think these products are very technical, and they have a very you can produce a sheet of technical requirements that you meet that meet some sort of industry best practice of what is expected from your product to cover in terms of threat elimination or handling threats in terms of cybersecurity. In terms of insurance, I don't want to sound oversimplifying it because it's not, but it actually it all comes down to statistics. Insurance company work with statistic models of what's the statistical
protection level.
Chance that some disaster will happen, if it's a car accident or health issue in terms of if you, God forbid, get cancer or any other terminal disease. There's a very very simple, not simple, but very best practice statistical models that you can use, and then you need to build on that and say, okay, I give coverage that meets these and these events under the assuming that they will happen in this and this statistical value. And then, since most people don't understand those very complicated statistic models, usually you just need to provide good service, because that's what people care about, that when they need you, you're there for them. And I think that one of the what people mostly use or should use, I don't know if they do, they probably don't, but they should, when selecting an insurance company, is what % of claims get answered. or get paid. And today the regulator does an annual list that comes out, every insurance company, what % of claims they do pay, and people should work by that, because that's the best measure of the product that they provide.
And user experience is big also in the cybersecurity field, because if you think about there is installation and things that goes with that. So how easy it is to install? Do we need to have our own people? Things like that. So that goes with everything that you mentioned about do we get the service that we want to get? So that's a good one. Thank you very much, Gad, Roy, and Amit. What do you have to add on these very interesting domains?
Couple of points I just want to go ahead and add. Both domains are pretty interesting. I was just thinking about it. I mean, there are two things I want to talk about. When you talk about these cybersecurity products, there's something I was just recently thinking about. When you build products, there are times when you sort of also get to have a sense of trust, so that you sort of go and make a customer feel right. I mean, customers should sort of have that sense of trust in your product. When you talk about insurance products and you talk about cybersecurity products, the customer should be able to trust your product, saying, hey, if I sort of have to, God forbid, file a claim, the company should be able to sort of fulfill that claim, right? And same applies for all these cybersecurity products, wherein whenever, let's say, if something happens, I should be in a position to sort of go ahead and be able to track and trace what happened, right? On the other aspect, I think what is also, again, a thought process that unlike any other product, the PMs here have a very less scope of what I always keep saying, that, hey, you could build fast, iterate and fail and then go, right? There's a very less scope of failing here, right? Because even though you need to continuously iterate, but then you just cannot afford to fail. I mean, mentioning what Gad was earlier mentioning, that, hey, let's say if you run an algorithm and predict that let's say United States of America, on a given day or in a certain year, X number of people would file for a claim, right? Now, if your algorithm somehow goes for a toss and let's say 10x of people file those claims, then you certainly would have your CFO coming onto your desk and talk about it, right? So you really want to be making sure that the kind of algorithms that optimize and predict, your prediction should be bang on, should be spot on, right? And then that is where you continuously need to use data and iterate. So yeah, that's what something I've been thinking of. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Amit. Roy?
Yeah, actually, I think that Gad's explanation about the insurance company remind me about the invention of insurance industry. So really interesting, you can read about it. It was developed in Scotland, and the way that actually the product market fit evolved around this subject. So there were soldiers, and the country needed to get them into the army, and they invented actually the insurance for their wives, so they were not left without an husband. Really interesting story. Regarding cybersecurity, I don't really know this field. I can tell, from a customer perspective, I'm as a customer, that there's heavy regulation, so you can find their ideas for gaps and things that you can improve, or like Moriya, you mentioned, better user experience, better installation, better support. I think that this is the way to go. Nothing special for this market.
Loving it. Thank you very much. Guys, we are almost closing the session, but before that, may I challenge you a little?
Sure.
Yes.
Of course.
This is what we're here for. Perfect. So as you know, we are all product professionals, and in the product management world, it's all about prioritization. So if I may, to challenge you and ask you for one thing, to really choose the one most critical thing that we talked about today from all these very interesting things that we mentioned, one thing that you want everyone in the audience to keep in mind tomorrow morning when they start a new workday, what this one thing will be, and I'll give you a few seconds to think, because I want to remind the audience that if they will like this video and our channel and subscribe to it, they will be notified about future and super awesome events just like this one. So please click on the like button and the subscribe button, either if you are watching us on Facebook only or on YouTube. Who is the first one to tell me what is the most prioritized element from our talk today?
I think it's customer feedback. I would say it's know your customer, listen to your customer, and provide them the service. And Moriya, you mentioned that earlier. Make sure that when you launch, you have an established customer service department. You don't just throw the product out there and let's see what happens, because that can create a negative wave that will make it very difficult for you to find the right product market fit.
I agree with you. Who's next?
I think I'll go. One critical piece that we also touched base today was when you launch a product in a certain market, always go ahead and measure the metrics and also measure the business viability before scaling. So when you're in your scaling, you really need to just make sure that are you like in a state to scale? Is your business viable? Is your business sort of scalable enough to sort of go ahead and expand in multiple markets? So you really need to sort of make sure that your P&L is in place before you just go ahead and scale. Yeah, that's one critical piece in my head.
Go and check the numbers, product managers. Yeah. That's a good one. Thank you very much. And Roy?
So I think that the most important thing for my end, I think that you always need to be creative. Think about how you can be creative, and you can use this webinar to understand the basic concept of product market fit. But in the end, you need to use it and find your way on this subject and how it will fit your problems. And I think the most important part is, after understanding, being creative.
Yeah, get your hands dirty and be creative about that. I like it very much. Thank you very much, Roy. These were Gad Zehavi, VP Product and co-founder at Conceal.io and Product League mentor, and wearing this awesome Product League shirt. Thank you very much for that. Amit Pandita, Product Manager at Flipkart and Product League mentor. Roy Klein, Product Manager at Connect Digital and Product League mentor. I'm Moriya Kassis. This is Product League. Thank you so much for watching us, and we can't wait to see you all in our audience in our next event next week. And until then, please go and link it up. Thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your knowledge with us. That was an awesome event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure the audience agrees with me, and I am looking forward to have you again on this exact stage one time soon. Thank you all, guys. Have a really awesome day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.